Oh, yeah, it's a whole lot different now. He can go there. He can show off the two natty that he have, all the ACC championship games, the new Allen Reeves facility. None of this stuff was here when I was coming out. But now he has that, the whole landscape across college football to change.
I'm Jeff Fischel. Welcome to Legends and Legacies, brought to you by Duke's Mayonnaise. Duke's, it's got twang. Back in 2004, Dabo Swinney took a trip to Lake Butler, Florida, that would forever change the course for the Clemson Tigers. We were used to seeing five-star talent all over the field in Death Valley, but CJ Spiller was the first to take a chance and enroll at little old Clemson.
Here I am, just a young kid out of Lake Butler, Florida, that just wanted to come here and just really just try to live out his dream and just have the best college experience that he possibly can have. Not even thinking that, my decision to come here would have an effect on kids later down the road or later down the pipeline to come to Clemson.
When CJ arrived at Clemson's program, he made an immediate impact on the field. Put it this way, there are just some players from the first time you see them, they're good. And CJ was great. Clemson's play-by-play announcer, Don Munson, recounts CJ's freshman year.
When CJ first shows up on campus 2006, being a five-star recruit, the first really kind of guy that Clemson had like that in a long, long time, to show up and then make immediate impact on the football program.
And once again, there's Orange in the end zone. 80 yards for the freshman C.J. Spiller on his very first carry.
I would probably say either that Boston College or that Georgia Tech game kind of took me to another level. And I think that game right there proved to a lot of people in my hometown, he's the real deal. He's the real deal. And I think it proved to myself that you can play at this level. I went through my growing pains as a freshman, just like everybody else do. But to me, it proved to me that, I can play at this level.
It's easy to look back at someone's career and only see the highlights, the SportsCenter top 10, if you will. But CJ's time at Clemson was not always that. After rushing for nearly 1,000 yards in his freshman campaign, CJ found himself watching a lot of the action during the 2006 Music City Bowl against Kentucky.
Went into that bowl game and, not to take, discredit Kentucky, but, from a stat standpoint, they was the worst rush defense in the country. And I just felt like for me and James Davis, I ain't gonna say we carried the team, but we were a big part of the team, especially from an offensive standpoint. For us to only get 5 or 6 carries through that whole game, to me, I just felt like that was a slap in the face to us. I didn't feel like that was right. And then here you have the University of Florida. That was the year that they won the national championship with Chris Lee. So here I am now. I got all these thoughts. And then not only my thoughts, I got other people saying, see, you should have went to Florida. You'll be playing for a championship. So it was just a lot of those emotions that was going up throughout my head, frustrated from that game. So you can only imagine that ride from Tennessee back to Florida. I'm livid. I literally left right after the game, drove right home right after the game. That's how mad I was, just because I didn't like how that turned out. But then I just remember talking to one of my uncles, and he kind of put it in a biblical term of a marriage. When you make a vow, I meant to say, is that, that vow is meant forever. And when I made that vow to Clemson, it wasn't on a 1-year term lease. That was a lifetime vow that I made. And, and that's why I always tell people now is that you can't make a decision. You can't make an emotional decision, because sometimes those are not the best decisions. And I think that's what I was getting ready to do, make an emotional decision. So after I kind of had some talk with him and, had a talk with Coach when he had to come, he was on a recruiting trip. He had to fly back to Clemson, and we kind of rode around town and just kind of talked through some things that was going on. And, I always tell people, I forget him telling me is that, why would you go to Florida and be in someone else's backyard when you can stay right here in Clemson and have your own backyard? And, that little cliche, everybody know these type of sayings that he come up with, that really stuck with him. I'm like, I gave it some thought, like, you probably right. 'Cause, his biggest thing is that He always looked out for my best interest. That's the thing I can always say about Coach. He always looked out for my best interest. And he didn't want me to go somewhere and just be another guy. And that's kind of how he felt. Like if I would have went somewhere, I just would have been just another guy there. Compared to if I just stay here at Clemson, I can make my name for my own self. And, I guess you can say the rest is history. So I came off that high cloud and came back down to earth. I decided to stay.
And it's a good thing CJ stayed, because his sophomore year, Thunder and Lightning was born.
25, 20, there he goes, and there's Orange in the end zone, and CJ Spiller takes a magic carpet ride.
It was fun. I was able to learn a lot from him. He was a highly competitive guy. He didn't like to lose. And then the thing I love about James, honestly, like he spoke his mind. A lot of guys gonna give you the political correct answer. James Davis gonna give you the Atlanta answer. He's gonna tell you what's on his mind if you ask him a question. And he's not gonna hold back for nothing. And I always remember the Maryland game when he came out and he guaranteed the win. And I remember us coming in the meeting room and Coach Powell going over, hey, probably shouldn't have said this. And I just remember just saying, hey, man, since you done said it, let's go out here and do it then. I just wanted him to know I had his back. I said, you done put it out there now. Now it's time for us to go out there and prove it. And during that week of preparation, I can just tell the different intensity that he brought to practice, the focus that he brought, because he wanted to go out there and back it up. And then, we shared ideas. I was always his watching eye on the sideline. I think that was very important. If I seen something, when he came off the field, I'd be able to share what I see, and it was vice versa. I think the thing that Coach Powell always taught us was that he wanted us to patrol each other. He didn't always want to do the sub. He never done the sub. Me and James, he let us handle the sub. So if one of us needed a blow, we'll come out. If he needed a blow, I'll go in. If I need a blow, he'll come in. And then we kind of had it where, hey, you get 3 series, then I go for 3 series. Or, hey, man, I'm going to go pound them up. He'll always say, hey, I'm going to go pound them up. And I'm going to set them up. So then that way you can just go ahead and just run around them and make them miss. So we always had our little thing. So it was a great brotherhood. And I was very fortunate enough to have another guy like him, because I think we was able to preserve our bodies throughout our careers, just because one guy didn't take a beating their entire season. But we were still highly competitive. I never let him get away with anything. If he was lacking on something, I was definitely in his ear letting him know. And it was vice versa.
So was there ever a time when, like, goal line situation, when you guys were battling to be the guy who was going to get to carry the rocker?
Yeah. It was a couple of times now. I was high. I remember, matter of fact, his last year when he came back for his senior year, and I think he was on pace to break Raymond Priester's record or something. And like, we literally had a meeting where, hey, CJ, you are between 20 and 20. Like, that was like, if you're going to break alone, you better score, because if it go past 20, James going to go into the game. And I remember it was a couple games where I would literally get the ball down to like the 8 or 7 yard line, and I would get subbed out the game, and I would be so mad. I would never show it. And it's probably the first time I ever admitting this, but I would be so mad inside. But at the end of the day, I knew that he wanted that record. So, I would politely just come out the game. But that's the only time I would really get mad at James, probably his senior year, when I would get the ball down there and they would sub me out the game, and he'll come in and get like a 1 or 2 yard touchdown.
Yeah, like you said, and if you were behind late in the game, the CJ's speed allowed him to take it the distance. You're down a minute and a half in the game, you got to go to the field, and your time's run out, you got no timeouts. They were different running styles. So CJ might be in that particular point because he's a guy that if he got to the second level could take it the distance if you were restricted on time. So there are reasons we had him in particular game type situations.
CJ's fancy footwork and pure speed, they weren't the only storylines surrounding the Tigers when he arrived. Legendary Florida State head coach Bobby Bowden and his son Tommy, CJ's coach at Clemson, had formed quite the rivalry, appropriately known as the Bowden Bowl.
I mean, it was very unique because you can kind of feel, I ain't gonna say the pressure, but the anxiety, the intensity kind of picked up, the attention to details picked up. And then we always worried about, was people filming our practices? Because, I mean, everybody in Clemson is not Clemson fans. So, you got to kind of worry about people filming stuff to take back down to Tallahassee. And then, it was a different demeanor with Coach Bow. You know, he walked around practice a little differently. He was more engaged during that week than any other week. You know, he wanted to make sure everything was right on time. But it was fun, though. It was fun. And I'm so honored to be able to say that I'm part of the Bowden Bowl because, you know, all the headlines going into that game. I mean, even the pregame rituals, I mean, the handshakes and seeing all the cameras and all the reporters out there midfield. I mean, it was crazy, but it was fun to be a part of. It was something that I'll cherish the rest of my life.
When we continue, we'll look at how CJ impacted Clemson football. But first, a word from our sponsor, Duke's Mayonnaise. Support for Legends and Legacies is provided by Duke's Mayonnaise and the Duke's Mayo Bowl, December 30th at noon on ESPN. Duke's, it's got twang. Splitting the carries led to Clemson having one of the most dangerous backfields in all of college football. In 3 seasons, C.J. Spiller and James Davis combined for over 6,500 yards and 76 touchdowns. However, 6 games into the 2009 season, their coach, Tommy Bowden, resigned after starting the year 3-3. Dabo Swinney, the charismatic wide receiver coach who recruited CJ, was named the interim head coach.
It was weird, to be honest, because I had never experienced nothing like a coach's change. Because my high school coach, he was my high school coach for all 4 years. So I didn't experience it on that level. Didn't experience it on part 1 level, I guess you can count that. Didn't experience in middle school. So when that happened, it was like something just didn't feel right. And then, you know, I put a lot of blame on myself because I still remember we played Wake Forest on a Thursday night and I ended up getting hurt. I ended up pulling my hamstring. And I always thought with me getting hurt was probably one of the reasons that Coach Bowden got fired or him stepping down. But then when you look back at it, I think it's one of the best things that could have happened for our program. Not saying that you ever want a coach to step down or a coach to get fired, but to see where our program, where it was at and where it became, I think it's probably one of the best things that could have happened. But it was tough for a lot of people. And I remember Coach Swinney coming into the meeting that first night when it happened. And he telling guys, if you want to transfer, he will grant their release. Like, you can go wherever you want. But if you come to this, it was a Monday night practice. If you come to this practice, you got to be willing to be all in. And that's really where the all in slogan started in 2008 on that Monday after that Thursday night game. He said, if you come to practice, you got to be willing to be all in. And everybody came to practice and, you know, everybody was all in with it. But like I said, it was tough for a little bit, but then, you know, we had to rally behind coach, you know, because games still had to be played. It sucks to lose a coach, and you always want to finish your career with the head man that was here when you started. So it was tough, but it was still games that had to be played. And then the seniors, our record wasn't good, so we had to win a lot of games to get bowl eligible. So, you know, we wanted to rally behind the scenes to send them out on a high note, and that was his message. Let's send these seniors out the right way. So that was his thing, and, you know, we rallied behind him, and I guess you can say the rest is history.
The Tigers would find success with Dabo as interim coach and CJ leading the way. Clemson finished the season going 4-3 with Swinney in charge. The Tigers earned the Gator Bowl berth and a win over in-state rival South Carolina. But CJ was at a crossroads. He had teammates leaving for the NFL, and after his junior season, he was now eligible as well.
You know, my grandmother, before she deceased, she was huge on academics. Like, that was her biggest thing. Like, didn't matter how good I was, I could go and score 5 touchdowns in high school, and, you know, or middle school when she was alive, and she'll always just come back. Well, I don't care how good you are. If your academics not what they need to be, you won't play the following week. So I remember getting with one of my learning specialists here, a lady by the name of Maria Herbst, and I asked her how close I was to graduation. And she was like, well, if you come back, you can graduate in December. So I took that. I was like, okay, I can graduate in December and come back and play another year. And really, I always thought about, you know, if I'm going to go out and tell kids about the importance of graduation, I want to at least have done it. Like, I didn't want to be one of those guys. And here I am as like a 20-year-old thinking this stuff. Like, I never wanted to be one of those guys, go and preach something that I never done. Like, I can't go tell a high school guy to graduate if I didn't graduate high school. Or I can't tell a guy, hey man, if you come back, graduation is important. I couldn't do that if I didn't do it. And then I wanted to be an example to my younger sister to let her know the importance that, academics will always, to me, outweigh the importance of sports. Because I think a degree can take you so much farther along than sports, because like I say, this game going to end for us one day, whether you, barring injury or just, different things happen, but one day this door is going to shut closed. But, as long as you have that degree, I think you can always have a door that can always open up for you. So those things kind of played in my mind. And, people always say, was it Coach Sweeney, sweet talking you? All he did was just gather the facts from the NFL and, the draft experts out there and kind of see what my draft stock would be. And surprisingly, we put in the paperwork, it came back a first rounder. So that really wasn't a big deal. I think it was just me just wanting to honor my grandmother of finishing off my college education.
That must have been really hard and complicated decision as well, because you had a family to worry about.
Yeah.
So that must have been incredibly difficult.
Oh man, that's probably up until that time, that was probably one of the most difficult decisions I had to make. Because like you say, here I am as a young kid at the rim of getting ready to do something that he wrote down in middle school, all his dreams. And here he is at the front door, being able to almost be able to live one of his dreams, and that's playing in the NFL. And I'm literally at the brink of that. And to be able to have those tough conversations with my mom, or those tough conversations with my brother. And my sister, she was young, so she was kind of iffy. Well, it was, yeah, you can go or you stay. She was gonna support me in a way, but it was mainly just having that tough conversation with my mom. And it's funny because the day that we did the press conference that I announced that I was coming back, I was on the phone with my mom riding up to what it was, the McFadden building, where we did the conference at. I remember getting to the facility and hanging up on it because she thought I was gonna leave. She wanted me to turn pro, but I knew I wasn't gonna leave. I knew I was coming back. And I remember walking into Coach Sweeney. We were just joking about this a couple of weeks ago at a luncheon. I remember walking to Coach Sweeney's office, literally like boo-hoo crying, like, man, I don't know what to do. Like, literally, I don't know what to do. And he was like, I just want you to do what's best for you. So he didn't even know I was coming back when we left his office. I mean, he'll tell you that if you ask him. He did not have no idea what I was going to do when I got up on that stage. So I gathered myself, but I knew I was coming back. I gathered myself, and as he put out, I wiped my tears away and all that stuff, and I went out there. And the biggest thing for me when I got out there I sat up there with Tim Beret was to see all my teammates on the front row and really just see how they was really in tune to every word I was saying. Because I wasn't a real big rah-rah guy. It was always about, let my play speak for itself, how I carried myself. But guys knew when I speak, it carried a lot of weight because I didn't speak often. So to sit there and see, out the corner of my eye, how my teammates was paying attention to every word I was saying, and then get there to that end to say, I'm gonna come back for my senior year, and to see the excitement. I wish people had footage of that or had some pictures of that, because I believe that might be the highest I ever seen Willie Corn jump up out of seat. I mean, just the excitement that those guys had for me announcing that I'll come back for my senior year. I always had the mindset, even when I announced when I came to Clemson, if it didn't work out, I did not want to point the finger at nobody else. That was always my mindset. If it didn't work out, I did not want to point the finger at no one else. If it didn't work out, it was just because it didn't work out. I can only point the finger at myself. So, I just gave him my advice. I gave him, my experiences that I went through, the conversations that he'll probably have to have with, his mom and his dad. Look for him, both his parents together. I just had a single mother, so I just had to have a tough conversation with a mom, and still probably tick her off again, like I did probably on signing day. So, but you just got to have those conversations so everybody's on board. And even with my mom, it took her another week or two to really be on board with what I decided to do, just because she, figured, her baby's this been a lifelong dream of his to play in the NFL, and here you have an opportunity to do that, and you decide to turn it down. So it took longer, for her to come back around to realize that I made the best decision. So I just share those things with him so that he can have those tough conversations. Because you don't know, you really don't know unless, you're able to talk to someone that kind of been through that, and I'd have been through it.
That right there was the first change to this program. I mean, I'm not here today without CJ Spiller, that's for sure. He was the first one to really believe in me, to believe in Clemson. This was January of 2009, and I just gotten the job full time, and he could have left and gone pro. And I thought he was going pro. We went into the when he left my office, he had tears in his eyes. We just said, we were talking, he wiped his tears away, and he said, "Okay, I'm ready." And we get up, and I'll never forget, I see Tim Beret, and Tim Beret's looking at me. He's got a room full of people. We're late coming in the press thing, and the whole place is packed. And he looks at me, and I went, "I don't think so." I thought he was leaving. So I go into the back of the room, and he gets up there, and he says, it was amazing. And he says, "I'm coming back to Clemson, and here's why." And, he wanted to graduate. He wanted to be a top 10 pick, and he wanted to lead us to a championship. And he did all those things. He led us to our first division title. And even though we didn't win that ACC championship down there in Tampa in 2009, ironically, it was the only time it was in that stadium in Tampa in 2009. He was the MVP of the game, and we lost. It was the most unbelievable performance I've ever seen. And the crazy thing about it, I just remember being so disappointed. 7 years later, we won a national championship in the same stadium. That, to me, just is how God works and how it all, comes together and timing of things. But just been an amazing relationship for a long, long time. And we've been really close for forever. And he always came back here in the off season. And I give him a lot of credit, man, because he took a leap of faith. And he came here for the right reasons. We've had some unbelievable conversations from his perspective as well over the years. And now he's 33, and he just joined my staff as a grad assistant.
I was just at practice yesterday. Here's the influence of CJ Spiller. So we open up practice with special teams. And there is CJ Spiller that is back there with all the return guys on kickoff, of which Travis Etienne is one. And I'm thinking in my head, and my mind immediately flashes back to 2009. So this is the first time that it's his senior year. So this is the opening kickoff to CJ Spiller's senior year after he's just, he's announced that he's coming back, and out he trots on the field to return the opening kickoff of 2009 against Middle Tennessee. And what does he do? He catches the kickoff kind of over in the left corner. He's running towards the rock. He's running towards the hill. He moves to his right, and he breaks. And the next thing you know, there is nothing between he and the end zone but green grass and fresh air, and he takes it to the house, and the stadium filled with 81,000 just erupts. And it's just like, what just happened? What just happened?
10, 15, seam 20, 25, 30 to the middle of the field, 35, running right 40, 45, 50, two men to beat inside middle territory to the 30, 20, 15, 10, 5, and there's Orange in the end zone. Touchdown! CJ Spiller starts things off in 09 with a 95-yard kickoff return for a touchdown. No flags.
I think that encapsulates what CJ Spiller is all about. He's making impact in the program the same way that he did on the field. Imagine what it's like being in that running back room. That running back room has a lot of talent in it.
Yeah, and that's really, I take that to heart. And I just want to bring that back here to these guys and to kind of just share my experience and kind of just give them another set of eyes, on the field or in the film room, or, if I'm breaking down film or the opposing defense, kind of just teaching them how to watch film, knowing your opponent. It's those little things that you really don't think about when you're in college, because especially if you've had tremendous success, you just think you know it all. But it's the little details that really take your game to a new level. So I wanted to just be able to just fine-tune that and just share that knowledge with these guys and see how they practice, see if I can push them, and get they practice habits right. Because I truly believe that what you do in practice really carry over to on Saturdays. So it's just those things that they might didn't even think about doing. that I want to share with, hey, man, it might be getting in the cold tub, taking care of your body. The faster you can start learning how to take care of your body, the longer you can hopefully play this game of football. We all know that it comes to an end for everybody one day, but if you can prolong it, a year or two, that's a plus for you. So it's just those little details that I want to be able to share with these guys. And, these guys, they pick my brain about, kickoff return. What did I see when I was back there? How did I trust my guys? So it's just little things like that I just want to be able to share, because I'm all about just wanting to see young men go off and be successful in life. I think that's kind of been my thing. I just want to see these guys go off and have a very successful NFL career or just a career in life, just in general.
He wants to now get into coaching, and can't wait for him to start that journey off and see where that goes. But he's a unique young man. He's on the board of trustees for IPTAY. He got a standing ovation at graduation from the entire board. I mean, everybody, the whole place. To my knowledge, that's the only time that's happened. But his impact and his legacy is just unbelievable. And graduated in 3.5 years. He's just always been about the right things. I mean, whenever he's eligible, his name will be on that stadium. You can best believe that. I mean, just look at him like a son, and it's been awesome to see him now come back and be able to experience some of these things that he really truly helped build.
There was a great window of opportunity to jump down in there, and instead of being maybe considered to be 4th or 5th on the list of schools you'd consider, now all of a sudden you've jumped and you're number 1. And so that makes the recruitment of the top level player that you're going after a lot easier. Again, it goes to perception. How is Florida State perceived right now in terms of how Clemson's perceived? If you asked somebody that question in 2001, you'd have an entirely different answer. I think when you go back to kind of the beginning, and you reference the recruitment of CJ Spiller, players that were signed in that class and then signed thereafter, you started to see all of these things happening on campus. And the players either within the program or the players that were considering the program would be getting feedback from the players within the program about where this thing was headed and all of the things that were happening, whether it was on campus, whether it was within the football side of things. And you could see a change that, oh man, Clemson's not kidding around. They're in the league with the big boys now, and they're making huge commitments, and it's very public and everybody knows about it. Justin Ross was the number 1 ranked player coming out of the state of Alabama 3 years ago. So it's Alabama, and it's where Louisiana, Travis Etienne. I think you can make an argument that of the last 15 years, there's probably been no program in major college football that has hit on. Everybody recruits, different areas in different states, but recruiting, signing, and actually having guys pan out. There's probably not a program in college football that's done it better than Clemson has when you consider a lot of the impact players that have become the face of the program in some way, shape, or form. Christian Wilkins, all right, he's out of Connecticut. Talked about Sammy Watkins, Mackenzie Alexander on the defensive side. He's out of Florida. Deshaun Watkins, we've talked about, Trevor Lawrence. The list goes on and on and on.
In college football, we often hear that certain players leave their marks on programs long after they're gone. Many times, this can be hyperbole. But for CJ, it is absolutely true. He was selected 8th overall in the 2010 NFL Draft. Since his departure, the Tigers, they've been on a streak that would make any fan proud. They've consistently finished near the top in recruiting, won 6 ACC titles, made 5 college football playoff appearances, and won 2 national championships.
I guess you can say I'm humbled by it, because like I said, man, I honestly, I really don't sit around and think about those things. The only time it really come to the front of my mind is if someone brings it to my attention. Obviously, you have some type of effect on the program, but the way that people be putting it is like, it almost questions, did I really have that big of an effect on the program? Here I am, just a young kid out of Lake Butler, Florida, that just wanted to come here and just really just try to live out his dream and just have the best college experience that he possibly can have. Not even thinking that, my decision to come here would have an effect on kids later down the road or later down the pipeline to come to Clemson. I think it's probably one of those experiences that I'll probably have once I'm officially done with everything and maybe write a book. I'll probably sit back and talk about. But to me, it's one of those things that really truly hasn't hit me to the full extent of, hey man, you probably did have a big impact on this university, this program of choosing to come to Clemson.
Legends and Legacies is a Raycom Sports production in conjunction with Two Waves Media. Editing and sound mixing is provided by Resonate Recordings. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a few friends or fellow fans. I'm your host, Jeff Fischel. See you next time.